did anybody in law enforcement express the opinion that they thought you were the ransom note writer?
I don't recall them ever saying that.
If you Google the question today, not that Googling should even be necessary, the reason Patsy was asked to give 5 samples of her handwriting on 5 separate occasions, including of her left hand, well, it wasn't because they didn't think Patsy didn't write the ransom note. I mean, who else did they ask for 5 samples? Now, if you go to Google, it says, yes, initially the Boulder police suspected that Patsy Ramsey wrote the ransom note found in the JONBENET Ramsey case. I'm not even sure if you would need to have that word initially there. Beyond Google, it was out there in the media in black and white, such as in this Denver Post article from October 17, 1999. Quite interestingly, in that same interview I've cited, Patsy quotes from their book, referring to a Denver Post article. So you would imagine that she would have read this. And she was a well-read journalism major, right? And so immediately, this came out immediately following the grand jury announcement. The Post was pontificating on what had actually happened to lead to such a mystifying result. Look at this. Experts, conviction a long shot. I wonder if they would have said that if they knew what the indictments contained. October 17, 1999, and then they say it was penmanship versus panties. The most damaging information against any one suspect. Think about those words. The most damaging information against any particular person in this case was the handwriting analysis that concluded JONBENET's mother, Patsy Ramsey, may, that's an important word for legal reasons, may have written the ransom note found in the family's Boulder home. Now, it goes on to note, if the murder looks like an inside job, then key evidence points to Patsy. What do you think that key evidence is? The ransom note. What do you think the grand jury thought of that evidence? Handwriting experts at the CBI ruled out John Ramsey, but they couldn't do the same for Patsy. After comparing one of Patsy's handwriting samples to the ransom note, guess which one that was? There were 5 samples, one was of the left hand. Which sample do you think ChatGbt is referring to when he said this handwriting showed indications that the writer was Patsy Ramsey? And there were also indications in the ransom note that there was an attempt to disguise the handwriting. At the end of the day, though, the handwriting analysis was inconclusive. That's why the word may is in that paragraph. Maybe Patsy wrote it. One could even say it's improbable that anyone else besides Patsy wrote it on her writing pad. There's even the housekeeper who said she recognized the writing on the ransom note as Patsy's. But is any of that hard scientific evidence? Well, what if computers could answer that question with a sufficient degree of statistical certainty for it to be admissible as evidence? What are we asking? Can AI solve the Ramsey case?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Well, that is certainly a fascinating question. One wonders what the answer might be in 5 years, 10 years.
Do you recognize the handwriting?
Not particularly. I don't remember writing it. What do you mean? I mean,
But-
I don't know. I may have.
I may have, and there's a big smile there. Now, are computers already better at solving true crime mysteries than investigators and researchers? I must say, just over the past couple of days, I've been quite appalled to see certain people interviewing certain people. I mean, there's been Amanda Knox on Ashley Banfield. There's been John Ramsey interviewed by Amanda Knox. There's been a certain doctor expert pontificating again this late in the day on whether Brian Coburg is a serial killer. And you kind of think, can't computers do a better job than people with their really flawed reasoning? Now, not long ago, someone sent me an analysis made by ChatGbt of the ransom note. Who wrote it? Well, let's see what it comes up with. And by the way, thanks, Tom, for passing this on. And once we've gone through that, I'm going to give you the TCRS assessment, and then it's up to you to decide what you think about AI in terms of analysis. I'm not saying that it should take over the whole process, but as you've seen in sport, AI can often provide a really important support role. And so in terms of the Ramsey case, what about a support role in terms of the ransom note? Perhaps it can provide analysis better than a human expert. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Look out for some analysis coming on the Madeleine McCann case. That should be coming up quite soon. And let's continue with this analysis. Please hit the thanks button if you're enjoying this episode and this thought experiment on the Ramsey case. Okay, so you put this into ChatGPT, type it in. Do the paragraphs of the ransom note switch from masculine to feminine writing styles? Right, that's a particular question leading to a particular analysis. Here is ChatGPT's analysis. Analyzing the JONBENET Ramsey ransom note for linguistic gender markers is an interesting exercise, as studies in forensic linguistics suggest that men and women tend to use language differently. Well, ain't that the truth? While this is not absolute, there are some general trends. Masculine versus feminine language tendencies. Masculine language traits, more direct, assertive, action-oriented, fewer qualifiers, less emotional expression, fewer personal pronouns. Feminine language traits, more indirect, I would say kind of subtle in some ways, polite, nurturing, emotional, use of hedging words, such as perhaps and I think, personal pronouns, and social references. Now let's deal with possible gendered analysis of the ransom note. So, and these are masculine phrases in the ransom note. 7 are identified. We're going to deal with 7 feminine. Let's have a look at them. Number 1, listen carefully, direct, commanding, short imperative sentence, characteristic of masculine speech. 2, we are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. Formal, impersonal, no personal pronouns, which men tend to use. 3, at this time, we have your daughter in our possession. So far, everything from the word go is masculine. There's detachment, it lacks emotion. The phrase in our possession is cold and businesslike. 4, you will withdraw $118,000 from your account. Commands with a clear directive. The specificity, the exact dollar amount, suggests a calculated, structured mind. Number 5, any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. Strong threat, authoritarian tone. Execution is also a word associated with violence and cold attachment. 6, you and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Strategic sounding, almost military or law enforcement-like phrasing. Constant scrutiny is not an emotionally charged phrase, but a calculated one. Then 7, you can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. It sounds professional, possibly written by someone familiar with police work or crime thrillers. That part's quite interesting. Men are statistically more likely to reference law enforcement tactics in writing. And then 7, feminine sounding phrases. Number 1, we respect your business but not the country that it serves. The phrase respect your business has a softer, somewhat polite tone. 2, I advise you to be arrested. Indirect, nurturing, almost motherly in tone. Be arrested is an unusual phrase for a ransom note. It sounds caring. 3, use that good southern common sense of yours. I think anyone would agree that this is quite conversational and flattering, and women tend to use more personal and friendly phrasing in writing. 4, do not try to grow a brain, John. Sarcasm and indirect mockery. This phrase has a tone that is more commonly seen in social interactions rather than criminal threats. This is a criminal threat situation, and yet this is kind of a informal, sarcastic tone. Number 5, if we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. Unusual wording. The mention of a stray dog, it humanizes the note. The detail of a stray dog adds an emotional or visual element, which is unnecessary, but also more common in feminine writing. 6, The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. The word exhausting and the advice to rest is also unusual in a ransom demand. This sounds more like concern rather than a cold demand. 7. It is up to you now, John. The phrase "it is up to you" suggests persuasion rather than pure threat. Exclamation points are used more frequently by women in writing. That's something I definitely picked up when I did my analysis. Conclusions. The overall structure of the letter is inconsistent. Possible theories based on linguistic gender analysis. Number 1, a single author with mixed traits. 2, a female author trying to sound authoritative and attempting to write something threatening but slipping into more personal phrasing. 3, a male author trying to add emotional elements, a man who's either imitating a woman or trying to add a psychological layer to the note. 4, more than one author. This to me is the most insightful part of the ChatGBT analysis. More than one author, the mix of styles suggests the possibility of collaborative writing. Now, first of all, if you want the TCRS assessment, it's interesting that the AI identifies the same number of male traits as female traits. In other words, it actually can't commit to an answer either way. In my opinion, the author is female or mostly female, although she's deriving some of her content from male sources. One of the biggest clues to the author being a female, which is mentioned nowhere in this analysis, is the central conceit of the ransom note, its length. In terms of determining whether more than one author wrote the note, the AI does better. All of this comes close but no cigar to figuring out the note. While the AI is correct about mixed traits and attempting to sound a certain way, trying to add a psychological layer and a mix of styles, what it misses, once again, is what is abundantly obvious. The ransom note is drawing from a bunch of movie quotes, not mentioned anywhere in this analysis. This alone is going to create a messy, inconsistent, and inauthentic psychology in terms of the author or authors, which I think was precisely the point. So you see, AI has some way to go before it can compete intelligently and coherently with human intuition. I still think we are ahead, or some of us are on that score. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening. Look out for that Madeleine McCann analysis coming up, and I'll see you guys next time.